The first sound Elias heard when the doors opened was the crying. It wasn't the ordinary cry of a baby. It echoed through the immense chamber like a distress signal bouncing off stone and crystal, sharp and desperate, vibrating through the floor beneath his boots. Elias froze in the doorway. "I think I took a wrong turn," he muttered under his breath. No one answered him. The chamber stretched wider than a stadium, its ceiling lost in shadows where slow-moving constellations drifted across a transparent dome. Towering crystalline pillars glowed faintly with streams of flowing data, and the floor beneath his feet was polished so perfectly that it reflected the stars above. And every single being in the room was staring at him. Most of them were tall, taller than any human Elias had ever seen, with long, elegant limbs and smooth, luminous skin that shimmered faintly in shades of silver and violet. Their eyes glowed softly like distant moons, and their ears curved slightly upward from their temples, giving them an almost regal sharpness. Aliens, a lot of them. Elias swallowed. He was wearing a maintenance uniform with a slightly crooked badge that read * Imperial Infrastructure Technician, Sector Maintenance Division *. His tool case hung awkwardly from one hand. He raised his free hand in a small, uncertain wave. Hi. No one waved back. The crying baby continued. At the far end of the chamber stood a throne platform carved from what looked like a single block of pale crystal. Suspended holographic banners displayed the swirling crest of the Aurelian Empire, an elegant spiral galaxy encircled by 3 burning stars. Seated on the throne was the tallest alien Elias had seen yet, the Queen. Even from across the enormous hall, he could feel the quiet gravity of her presence. Her luminous skin shimmered like moonlight on water, and faint patterns of glowing lines moved beneath the surface like living constellations. A thin crown of floating crystal fragments hovered just above her silver hair. But she was not sitting with regal composure. She was holding a baby, and that baby was crying like the universe was ending. The sound filled the entire court. Beside the throne, a cluster of alien figures in white, flowing garments worked frantically around a floating medical console. Holographic scans of the infant rotated in midair. Complex biological diagrams filled with symbols Elias definitely didn't recognize. One of the nurses, her eyes glowing a soft blue, pressed a device gently against the infant's temple. The baby screamed louder. A ripple of unease moved through the gathered nobles. Elias shifted his weight. "Wow," he whispered quietly. "Rough day." An alien guard standing near the doorway glanced down at him. The guard's armor was sleek and black, shaped almost organically, and a faint line of glowing energy ran along the edges. The guard looked deeply confused. "You are the human technician," the guard said slowly. Elias nodded. "That's me." The guard blinked. "You were summoned to repair the atmospheric stabilizers in corridor ring 4. "Yep." The guard looked toward the throne where the crying infant continued her relentless protest against existence. Then back at Elias. "This is not corridor ring 4. "No," Elias said gently. "I figured that out." Across the chamber, the Queen's voice rose above the chaos. Why does nothing calm her? Her voice was smooth and melodic, but heavy with exhaustion. A scientist bowed deeply before her. His eyes flickered nervously as he studied the data floating before him. "Your Radiance, we have attempted neural soothing frequencies, harmonic resonance therapy, and genetic stabilizers. The princess's neural field is fluctuating unpredictably." "Fluctuating," the Queen repeated. The scientist hesitated. "Her mind appears to be searching." The baby screamed again. Elias winced. "Poor kid," he murmured. The guard glanced at him. "You find this humorous?" "No, I just mean," Elias rubbed the back of his neck. "Babies cry sometimes." Several nearby nobles turned toward him. One of them leaned slightly toward another and whispered something in a language Elias didn't understand. He did catch one word, though: human. It was said with the same tone someone might use for * unexpected insect. Elias sighed quietly. He had gotten used to that look over the last few months working inside the Aurelian Palace maintenance systems. Humans were still a novelty here. Officially, Earth was just a minor diplomatic partner on the very outer edge of the Empire. Unofficially, most of the court seemed unsure whether humans were impressive or deeply suspicious. The baby kept crying. The Queen stood slowly from the throne. The room fell silent except for the desperate sound of the infant. Her luminous eyes moved across the chamber and stopped when they reached the doorway. Stopped on Elias. He instinctively pointed at himself. "Me." The Queen's gaze sharpened slightly. Elias suddenly felt like every molecule in his body was being politely inspected. He shifted awkwardly. "Look, I promise I didn't break anything in here," he said quickly. "I just came to fix an air circulation panel." The queen said nothing. The baby screamed again. Elias winced harder this time. "Okay, seriously though," he muttered. "That kid's got lungs." A few nobles exchanged scandalized looks. Humor did not seem to be a popular coping mechanism in the imperial court. The queen stepped down from the throne platform, the crying infant held gently against her shoulder. The entire room parted instinctively to give her space as she walked forward. Elias looked behind him. The doors were still open. Technically, he could leave, but the queen kept walking directly toward him. "Great," he whispered. The guard beside him straightened instantly. The queen stopped several meters away. Up close, Elias noticed something strange about her eyes. They were glowing faintly gold, and they were studying him with unsettling intensity. The baby continued crying into her shoulder. The queen spoke quietly. "You are the human assigned to infrastructure maintenance." Elias nodded. "That's me." The baby wailed again. Elias glanced at the infant and then back at the queen. Congratulations, by the way." The queen blinked once, clearly not expecting that response. Several nobles gasped softly. Elias smiled awkwardly. The baby's glowing eyes suddenly shifted. Slowly, deliberately, they landed on him. The crying stopped instantly. The silence that followed crashed into the chamber like a physical wave. The baby stared at Elias. Elias stared at the baby. "Oh," he said quietly. The infant reached one tiny glowing hand toward him. And for the first time since he had entered the room, Elias realized something deeply strange. The baby wasn't just looking at him. She was recognizing him. For several long seconds, no one in the chamber moved. The silence felt almost unnatural after the relentless crying that had filled the hall only moments before. Elias blinked. The baby blinked back. Her glowing silver eyes were fixed entirely on him, wide and calm now, as if she had been waiting for him to show up all along. "Okay," Elias whispered slowly. "That's new." The queen noticed it too. Her gaze moved from the silent child to the human standing awkwardly near the doorway, and something unreadable passed across her luminous face. Behind her, the royal scientists began whispering rapidly. It stopped. "The princess's neural storm has stabilized." "What caused the shift?" "Run the scans again." The baby let out a soft, curious coo. Then she stretched her tiny hand further toward Elias. He instinctively raised both palms. "Oh no," he said quickly. "I am absolutely not qualified to handle alien royalty." A ripple of quiet confusion moved through the nobles. The queen stepped closer. The infant did not cry. Instead, the small glowing fingers continued reaching toward Elias with determined little wiggles. "Your presence altered her condition," the queen said calmly. Elias nodded uncertainly. "Yeah, I noticed." The queen studied him more closely now, her golden eyes narrowing slightly. "You did something." "I promise I didn't," Elias said quickly. "I literally just walked in." Behind them, one of the scientists activated a scanning device that floated toward Elias like a curious metal insect. A soft beam of light passed over his body from head to toe. Elias squinted at it. "Is this the part where I start glowing and explode?" "No," the scientist replied distractedly. "Good," Elias muttered. The baby made another happy little sound. Every noble in the room stared. The infant had been screaming nonstop for hours. Now she looked delighted. The queen slowly lowered the child from her shoulder and cradled her in both arms so she faced Elias directly. The baby kicked her legs with excitement. Elias rubbed the back of his neck. "Well," he said, "I guess she's having a better day." The queen took one step closer. The baby reached again. This time she made a tiny, impatient noise. Elias looked at the queen. The queen looked at the baby. Then the queen looked back at Elias. "You may approach," she said. Every guard in the room instantly tensed. Elias pointed at himself again. "Approach." "Yes." "Oh boy." He walked forward slowly, his boots echoing faintly against the polished floor. Hundreds of alien eyes followed every step like he was crossing a battlefield instead of a throne room. When he stopped in front of the queen, the baby was practically leaning out of her arms. "Hi there," Elias said gently. The infant grabbed his finger immediately. The reaction was instant. A faint shimmer of golden light rippled outward from the baby's skin like a calm wave spreading across water. Several of the scientists gasped. "Her neural energy has stabilized completely." "That's impossible." "Record everything." Elias looked down at the tiny hand, gripping his finger with surprising strength. "Well, hello to you too," he said softly. The baby made a small, happy noise and held on tighter. The queen stared at the contact. Her voice dropped slightly. "She has not stopped crying since her birth." Elias looked up. "Not even once." "Not once." He looked back down at the baby. She was now calmly inspecting his hand as if it were the most fascinating object in the galaxy. "Well," he said thoughtfully, "I guess she just needed a new face to look at." A few nobles exchanged doubtful glances. One tall advisor with long, pale hair stepped forward slowly. His eyes glowed a faint green. "Humans are not known to possess psychic harmonics," he said carefully. Elias looked up. "I'm not even sure what that sentence means." Another scientist leaned closer to his scanner. "There is no psionic output from the human." "Then why did the princess stabilize?" The advisor looked at Elias again. "Human," he said. "Have you had contact with the princess before today?" Elias laughed. "No, this is literally the first alien baby I've ever met." The baby cooed again. She tugged gently on his finger. Elias grinned. "Okay, technically she met me." A few guards shifted uneasily. One of them whispered quietly to another. "She responds only to him." "That cannot be coincidence." The queen heard them. Her expression remained calm, but her eyes were sharp now. She turned slightly toward the scientists. "Scan the child again." The floating console brightened as new data appeared. Numbers and symbols scrolled rapidly. One of the researchers suddenly froze. "Your radiance." The queen looked at him. "What is it?" The scientist's voice trembled. "The princess's neural patterns, they are synchronizing." "With what?" the queen asked. The scientist slowly turned the scanner toward Elias. "With him." The entire court erupted into whispers. Elias blinked. "Synchronizing?" he repeated. "Your brain activity and the princess's neural field are mirroring each other's rhythm," the scientist explained, staring at the data in disbelief. Elias frowned. "I don't remember signing up for that." The baby giggled softly, actually giggled. The sound echoed gently across the enormous chamber. Every noble in the room went silent again. The princess of the Aurelian Empire had just laughed for the first time, and she was still holding Elias' finger. The queen watched the moment very carefully. Something deep and ancient stirred in her expression. "Interesting," she murmured. The advisor beside her looked uneasy. "Your radiance, we must consider the political implications of this." "Oh, I am," the queen said quietly. Elias shifted awkwardly. "I feel like I accidentally joined a very important meeting." No one laughed. The queen leaned slightly closer to him. The baby remained perfectly calm. "You arrived in this chamber by mistake," the queen said. "Yep. And yet my daughter's distress vanished the moment she saw you." "Seems that way." Her golden eyes searched his face carefully. "Tell me, human." Elias felt suddenly very aware that hundreds of alien nobles were watching him breathe. "Yes." "Why does my child recognize you?" Elias looked down at the baby again. She stared back at him with quiet fascination, her glowing eyes reflecting the palace lights like tiny stars. He shrugged slowly. "I was kind of hoping you'd know." The silence in the imperial chamber grew heavier with every second that Elias stood there with the tiny hand of the Aurelian princess wrapped firmly around his finger. The scientists continued whispering urgently around their floating consoles, streams of alien symbols cascading through the air like luminous waterfalls of data. "Neural resonance is stable." "It's not fading." "The synchronization is strengthening." "That is impossible." Elias shifted slightly. The baby tightened her grip. "Okay," he muttered softly. "That's adorable, but also a little concerning." The princess let out another soft laugh, a bright and curious sound that echoed through the vast throne hall. A few of the nobles looked genuinely shaken. One of the older advisors stepped forward slowly, his long robes trailing behind him like drifting smoke. His glowing green eyes were fixed on the data projections hovering beside the scientists. "Your radiance," he said carefully. "We must consider the ancient archives." The queen did not look away from Elias. "I am already thinking of them." The advisor hesitated. The Starbund bond. At those words, a quiet ripple passed through the court. Several nobles stiffened. One of the younger scientists looked confused. "You believe that legend is relevant?" she asked. The advisor turned toward the data projections and gestured. "The princess's neural energy has been unstable since birth. Her psychic potential is already exceeding the thresholds predicted for an Aurelian heir." He looked toward Elias. And yet the moment this human entered the chamber, her mind stabilized. Elias raised a finger. Technically, she stabilized when she grabbed my finger. The advisor ignored the comment. The archives speak of a rare genetic resonance between the Aurelian royal line and a distant species, seeded by our explorers thousands of years ago. Elias blinked, seated. The queen finally spoke again, her voice quieter now. Long before your species developed technology, our empire explored your world. Elias frowned, Earth. Yes, several new holographic projections appeared above the scientists' consoles, ancient star charts and genetic diagrams rotating slowly in the air. One of the scientists pointed to a strand of DNA displayed beside a much older Aurelian genetic pattern. The similarities were subtle, but unmistakable. Our ancestors introduced a dormant genetic marker into early human evolution, the scientist said carefully. Elias stared at the projection. Wait, you're telling me aliens edited humanity? The scientist tilted her head slightly. A very small adjustment. That feels like a big adjustment. The advisor continued. The archives predicted that one day, a descendant carrying that ancient marker would emerge as someone capable of stabilizing the immense psychic power of a future Aurelian monarch. The entire court slowly turned toward Elias again. He stared back at them. Please tell me you're joking. No one laughed. The baby gently tugged his finger again. Another faint ripple of golden light passed through her tiny body, spreading outward like a calm pulse of energy. The scientists gasped again. Her neural output just synchronized further. She's bonding to him. Elias sighed. Of course she is. The queen stepped closer now, her expression calm but deeply thoughtful. You carry the genetic echo our ancestors left behind, she said. Elias rubbed his forehead with his free hand. So, I'm some kind of accidental babysitter prophecy. The baby giggled again. A few nervous smiles appeared among the younger scientists, but not everyone in the court looked amused. A tall noble with dark, reflective eyes stepped forward sharply. This is unacceptable. The room shifted uneasily. The noble's voice carried the sharp tone of authority. The heir to the Aurelian Empire cannot be dependent on a human. A murmur of agreement spread among a small group of nobles. The noble continued. This situation creates a vulnerability. Political enemies could exploit such a weakness. The baby frowned slightly. Elias leaned toward her. Yeah, I don't like that guy either, he whispered. The princess immediately relaxed again. The noble scowled. This is not humorous. Elias shrugged. Humor helps. The noble turned toward the queen. Your radiance, we must separate them immediately to test whether this effect is permanent. The baby instantly tightened her grip. As if she understood the suggestion, her lower lip trembled. Elias noticed. Oh, that's not good. The queen raised one hand. The chamber fell silent again. Her golden eyes moved slowly across the court. When she spoke, her voice carried the calm authority of someone used to ruling entire star systems. My daughter has cried since the moment she was born. No one interrupted. Every physician, every scientist, every psychic in this empire failed to soothe her suffering. Her gaze shifted toward Elias. And yet this human walked into the chamber by accident, and she found peace. The queen gently adjusted the princess in her arms. The child had now completely fallen asleep, still holding Elias' finger. The queen studied the tiny hand gripping the human's finger. Then she looked at the court again. You fear this human because he is unfamiliar, she said calmly. Several nobles shifted uncomfortably. But I see something else. Her voice softened slightly. My daughter was afraid until she saw him. The chamber grew quiet again. Elias felt strangely warm where the baby's hand held his finger. The queen took another step closer. You did not come here seeking power, she said. Nope, Elias replied. You did not demand recognition. Definitely not. You came here to repair air circulation. That is still technically my main job. A faint smile touched the queen's lips. Then she turned toward the court. From this moment forward, Elias of Earth will remain within the royal palace. Whispers exploded across the chamber. He will serve as royal guardian to the Aurelian princess. The noble who had protested earlier stepped forward again. Your radiance. The queen's golden eyes flashed. The noble immediately fell silent. The queen looked back at Elias. The princess still slept peacefully, her glowing skin softly illuminating the space between them. You calmed the future ruler of this empire when no one else could. Elias exhaled slowly. Well, that's a lot of pressure for a maintenance guy. The queen tilted her head slightly. Do you accept this responsibility? Elias looked down at the sleeping baby. Her tiny fingers still clung tightly to his. He smiled. Well, I guess someone has to make sure she doesn't grow up surrounded entirely by overly serious aliens. A few quiet chuckles slipped through the scientists. The Queen's smile grew slightly wider. Then it is decided. High above them, the dome of the throne chamber shifted as the holographic constellations slowly realigned. The princess slept peacefully for the first time since her birth. Her small hand still wrapped around the finger of the human who had unknowingly changed the fate of an empire. And throughout the vast court of the Aurelian Empire, one realization quietly spread among the nobles. The most important figure in the future of their royal bloodline was no longer purely Aurelian. It was a human,